So when we start at the piano, the first thing we want to learn is how to sit at the piano. The first thing we're going to do is check our distance away from the piano keyboard. So sit straight and tall on the front half of your bench. Notice how this boy in the picture is sitting scooted all the way to the front half of his bench. His bench is far enough away from the piano that his feet are able to rest comfortably and flat on the floor. And as he holds his arms out straight in front of him, his knuckles can touch the fall board, which is the wooden part of the piano right above where the keys are. So if you have to lean forward or move the bench forward or backward in order to have your knuckles touch that fall board, then you need to adjust your bench accordingly. The second thing we want to do is make sure that we are sitting at the correct height. This won't be a problem for most of you because we all have legs long enough to reach the floor. Most of us do. If you don't, if your legs are a little too short to reach the floor comfortably, then you may find it necessary to use a small stool under your feet. But the most important thing here is that we want our forearms to be level with the keyboard. So forearms need to be parallel to the ground here, not way up in the air or hanging down below the keyboard, but just right there level with the keyboard. And again, this may have to do with how close or how far away you are from the keyboard. You may need to adjust your bench forward or backward. Finally, we want to make sure that we have a nice straight posture when playing the piano. So take a nice deep breath, let it out, roll your shoulders around, and then let them rest naturally back down, but with your back remaining straight and tall. This is your position for playing the piano. The next thing that we need to know are finger numbers. So when we play piano, we number each of our fingers. Our thumbs are always number 1. Pointer finger is always number 2. Middle finger is always number 3. Ring finger is number 4. Pinky finger is number 5. And then when we play, we want to use a nice rounded hand position. Look at the position of this hand here on your page. Notice how rounded it is, and notice that the thumb is nearly touching that index finger there. That's the way we want our fingers to be. We want them nice and curved. We want that wrist very loose so that it can kind of flop up and down, but we want to keep those fingers and that thumb curved. When we play, we're going to play with the fleshy part of the tips of our fingers, and we're going to play with the side tip of our thumb, just underneath the fingernail there. Oh, and one other thing, make sure that when you're playing that you keep your fingernails trimmed fairly short so that you can easily play on your fingertips. If your fingernails are clicking the keys when you're in this position, that means that your fingernails are too long and they need to be trimmed. So let's talk a little bit about the keyboard. The keyboard is made up of black keys and white keys, and the black keys come in patterns of 3s and 2s, 3 and 2. 3 and 2, and so on, all the way up and down the keyboard. Also notice that when we go up the keyboard, that means we're moving towards the right, and the notes get higher the farther to the right that we move. In the same way, when we move down the keyboard, we're moving to the left. So the farther to the left we moved, the lower the notes will get. So we're going to practice playing some of those black keys now by playing something called wind chimes for right hand. And we're also going to practice going up and down the keyboard. So before we do that, we want to introduce these two concepts that are in these colored boxes on your page. The first is forte. It is the Italian word for loud. And when we see this fancy F in our music, that is the abbreviation for forte. It tells us to play loudly. The word piano is the Italian word for soft. And when we see this P symbol in our music, that is the abbreviation for piano. It tells us to play softly. So we're going to start with wind chimes for right hand. I'm going to open my camera here so that you can see my keyboard. I'm going to play the 2 black key groups going up the keyboard and starting in the middle of the keyboard. You won't be able to see me all the way up because my camera doesn't catch my whole keyboard in its scope, but you'll be able to get the idea there. So I'm going to start with my hands again, nice and curved. Notice that curved position there of my hand with my finger and my thumb nearly touching there. I'm going to play I'm going to use fingers 2 and 3 to play the black key groups like this. And I'm going to play forte. And moving up the keyboard. And there's one more. And now back down. And now similarly, I'm going to do the same thing with my left hand for wind chimes for left hand. I'm going to start in the center of the keyboard with my left hand, and I'm going to move down the keyboard and then back up. But this time I'm going to play piano or softly. So now here's my left hand. Left hand again is nice and curved. And I'll start on these 2 black keys here in the center, playing piano. And if you'd like, you can try that exercise on the 3 black key groups as well by playing 3 black keys, and so on. And then again with the left hand. So that's just a way you can vary up the exercise. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the musical alphabet. In music, we have an alphabet of 7 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Once we get to G, we start over again with A. You can see how that works here on this diagram of the keyboard. And the first white keys that we're going to learn are the notes C, D, and E. So we're going to find those 2 black keys right in the center of our keyboard, these 2 right here. And the 3 white keys that surround those 2 black keys are the notes C, D, and E. So go ahead and find those 2 black keys, then the 3 white keys, C, D, and E. Now we're going to use the 3 black key groups to help us find F, G, A, and B. So I'm going to look at my keyboard, find those 3 black keys, and the notes that surround them are F, G, A, B. And that's true for any group of 3 black keys on the piano. F, G, A, B. These down here, 3 black keys, F, G, A, B. 3 black keys, F, G, A, B. Similarly, 2 black keys, C, D, E. 2 black keys, C, D, E. 2 black keys, C, D, E. So we're able to determine which note each white key represents by looking at the patterns of black keys, those patterns of 2 and 3. Let's talk briefly about rhythm. Music has long and short sounds. We count the long and short sounds with a steady beat or pulse, and this creates rhythm. So let's look at some basic rhythms here in our rhythm flag. The first of these basic rhythms is what we call a whole note. And a whole note lasts for 4 beats. It sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, we have half notes. Half notes look like this, and they each last for 2 beats like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then finally, we have quarter notes. Each quarter note lasts for 1 beat. 1, 1, 1, 1. Now we're ready to play our first song on the white keys. Before we do that, let's talk about what a measure is in music. In music, beats are grouped into measures. Each measure has the same number of beats. So we're going to start with a 4-beat measure. We also have bar lines which divide the music into measures. So let's look at this example right up here at the top of your page. You have a bar line, excuse me. Then you have 4 beats. Then you have another bar line to divide those 4 beats there. Then we have 4 more beats. Then we have a bar line, and this would go on continuously until the end of the song. Now, before we learn to play rhythm and blues, we're going to practice a little warm-up here. We're going to practice playing the notes C and E together, and then the notes F and A together using fingers 1 and 3. So let's practice that. C and E together, C and E together, and then we're going to jump up and play F and A together. F and A. Go ahead and practice that, and we'll continue this lesson on the next recording.